Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Going to talk to you tonight about that restatement of separation that I gave to the mayor today. And first of all, the original statement still sits on the Wyrd Wyzard website as a notice, so you go see that there. And then the restatement I haven't posted on the site yet, but I do have it in the community section in 4 parts on my El Perro page. So we're going to take a look at it real quick. Let me do it this way. And what we're looking at here is my community page as opposed to home, videos, shorts, live, playlists, and then community. So on my community, I don't have a whole lot there yet. A few things, but not a lot. You go down and look at it. But here recently, I put up my statement of separation in 4 parts. Got the first one, and on this one here, I added a few things at the beginning as part of the restatement. And it's got sites in regards to the United States Bureau of Consular Affairs, United States Department of State, consular notification and access reference card, as well as steps to follow when a foreign national is arrested or detained in the U.S. So there are already, there are already processes that are already prescribed. And it's got my regular statement and everything. And then in part 2, we have my points that I put out, and in those points, I'm referencing 5 U.S. Code 552A, which is records maintained on individuals. And if you remember that term, individuals, that's the same thing as a corporation, a partnership, association, in a block of characteristic like kinds that perform commercial business transactions. 18 U.S.C. sections as follows. Let me double check, make sure. I want to remind everybody, hit the like, share, and subscribe button for me. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody that wants to share some love. And of course, the StreamYard link is there for anybody who wants to join the panel. But 18 U.S. Code is, these are some of the things that I was talking about in the previous video at 6 p.m. that John mentioned. There are certain parts of Section 18 as to misprision of felony and false statements and stuff. And that's what we're talking about, is the records maintained on individuals and the false statements within, the misrepresentations, the misidentifications, the errors, omissions, whatever you have. And they relate to public money, property, and records. And like I said earlier, it's because they've taken private information and made it government information, and that's an unlawful conversion. 793, gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information. Now, all that information that they have in those record systems pertains to the society and how it operates. And so it has to have that commercial element of operation, and that's the defense information. That's the security instruments that they use to buy and sell, saying that the information in those documents is true and correct, so much so that it's warranted. And that's the problem. It's not. It's false. How can it be warranted, true and correct, assured, accurate, and having integrity if we find out that it's impossible for you to be a United States citizen, particularly if a United States business means a United States citizen? What that's actually saying is that it was conferred, if you were conferred a nationality of a United States citizenship, then you were given a position in a United States business as a representative, and you are not the thing. And actually, the thing that you are representing is a representative of yourself to begin with. It's identified through a representation of yourself. And again, it's the name and number identify the record. It's never going to identify you. I wasn't born with a number. I wasn't even born with a name. In the natural world, long before names and numbers came up, we were born, and that was just a matter of our nature. Gathering or delivering information to aid foreign government. Now it's the state that's gathering this information, and it's to aid the foreign government. Who's the foreign government? See, I was born naturally on the land. So the government itself is foreign, okay, to our nature. The government, this posed government itself, is foreign to our nature. And as I explained to my companion earlier, again, ment particularly stands as a suffix for mentality. And govern means authority. So you have an authoritative mentality if you are self-governing. You have an exceeding authoritative mentality if you think you have the authority to tell other people what they can and cannot do. Disclosure of classified information. Diplomatic codes and correspondence. Disclosure of confidential information generally. Concealment, removal, or mutilation generally. And you'll notice all this stuff has to do with the records. Again, I'm not here to make accusations against somebody else's name or title or their office. I'm here to make accusations about the record that I know to be in error because I'm the motherfucker that entered them. Errors or omissions. Entry of goods by means of false statements. See, when Mom was on that labor bed, having going through labor pains and having a child, discharging a man of her mother's waters, nobody made that statement. They made the statement that there was an establishment of a United States business, but that wasn't a true recording of the event. Okay? The true recording of the event wasn't actually recorded as it was supposed to be, and instead was an entrance of words with value that had a monetary value by means of false statements. And that has to do with 18 U.S.C. 1512, tampering with a witness, victim, or informant, wherein Mom was declared of an informant. And the tampering with that informant is that they induced her to sign legal documentation while she wasn't in her right mind. Fraud and related activity in connection with identification documents. In other words, they had her in a medical setting with medical doctors giving her legal advice, threatening that they wouldn't let her out unless she signed these legal documents. They don't have authority to make such legal determinations. They're practicing the wrong practice. Fraud and related activity in connection with identification documents. Authentication features and information. The information is critical. You gave them a given name and a surname, and they converted it to a first name and last name creating a legal name, the establishment of the legal fiction, a presumption that there now exists a United States business. Aggravated identity theft. And this comes under Criminal Resource Manual. Let's take a look at that. This is a Criminal Resources Justice.gov archives. Criminal Resource Manual. This is archived content from the U.S. Department of Justice website. The information here may be outdated and links may no longer function. Please contact webmaster U.S. Department of Justice.gov if you have any questions about the archive site. Criminal Resource Manual 1500 of 1999, 1508 specifically mentioned identification documents under 10 U.S.C. 1028. And it says here, 1028 of Title 18 designates 3 special, non-federal identification documents and gives them preferred treatment. Preferred treatment. These 3 documents, in the absence of a national identity card, nobody has a national identity card, do you? Because there's an absence of a national identity card. In case you don't understand what this is saying, it says, in the absence of a national identity card. Now, I want to ask everybody, do you have a national identity card? If you try to pose to me that your state ID is a national identification card, I'm going to tell you wrong. If you're going to try to tell me that your state driver's license is a national identity card, I'm going to tell you wrong. If you're going to try to tell me that the birth certificate is a national identity card, I'm going to tell you wrong. Because it's going to tell us here the 3 preferred documents are a birth certificate, driver's license, and personal identification card. Those identifying the person. The name and number identify the record. A. Birth certificate is not defined in 18 U.S.C. 1028 since it is self-explanatory. This document is issued by different agencies in different states and foreign countries. Nevertheless, it represents the official governmental statement by the proper government agency that a person having such a name was born on a particular date in a particular place of specific parentage. I am not a person. That is a descriptor of what I truly am. A child of God, a living soul. A distinction of a specific man, which is another form of a noun. Whereas living soul is a noun phrase. Having such a name was born on a particular date. I was born in the day of God, in the day of our Father, and every day is His. What does it matter what date I was born on? They're limiting time. That's the scheme, is time. In a particular place in Iowa. I wasn't born in Iowa. I live in this world, but I'm not of this world. So when I was born, I was born on the land as so described again by another noun, Iowa. You have to understand how the language displaces the reality of specific parentage. What is parentage? We'll look into that sometime. Obviously, a birth certificate is not intended to actually identify the person who claims such a document pertains to him. See, it's identifying something else, and it pertains to you. They're telling you in the language, and you're just not reading it right. There are few physical characteristics that remain the same as those at the time of birth. There are few physical characteristics that remain the same as those at the time of birth. Nevertheless, the birth certificate has become commonly accepted as an identification document in this country, despite the law that says it's not to be used for identification purposes. I find that inconsistent. I also find it inconsistent that they would demand a nationality and evidence of that nationality when there is no nationality card. They give green cards to the immigrants, but they demand us their preferred 3 documents. I urge you, you have better choices. They're telling you things that are not true. You're not required to have identification. If you know how to identify self, know thyself, you make that distinction between the entity of the legal fiction and that of the living soul. Driver's license is not defined in 18 U.S.C. 1028. The original purpose of this government-issued document was to state that a particular person was authorized to operate a vehicle upon the public roadways. It was not intended to establish one's identity. Then I want to ask, why is everybody requiring that identification when you go through these checkpoints and through these doors with all these metal barrier things? Why is it they want your identification? What is it they're trying to identify if not you? Again, do they know what they're doing here? Because that's exactly what they're doing. They're demanding ID to identify yourself. And this is telling you it's not intended to establish one's identity. So are they using it for a purpose other than it was intended? Do I need to remind you of 18 U.S. Code 1589, forced labor? Whoever knowingly provides or obtains the labor services of a person by any one of or by any combination of the following means: by means of force, threats of force, physical restraint, or threats of physical restraint to that person or another person; by means of serious harm or threats of serious harm to that person or another person; by means of the abuse or threatened abuse of law or legal process; or by means of any scheme, plan, or pattern intended to cause the person to believe that if that person did not perform such labor services, that person or another person would suffer serious harm or physical restraint. So when they demand to see your ID, that's exactly what they're doing. And it's a pattern of practice, a scheme intended to cause you to believe that they have that false authority. Shall be punished as provided under subsection D. And we'll read D here in a short, But first, let's see the term abuse or threatened abuse of law or legal process means the use or threatened use of a law or legal process, whether administrative, civil, or criminal, in any manner or for any purpose for which that law was not designed in order to exert pressure on another person to cause that person to take some action or refrain from taking some action. So just the use of the law is abuse of that law or legal process. Even if threatened, it means used, because threatening is the threat of use, and therefore in a manner for any purpose which the law was not designed. And if that identification was not intended to be used for identification, then why are they demanding identification? Let me see your license. Do you think they know what they're doing? If they're asking for identification and demanding a driver's license, which is proof that you are available for commerce, not that you're actually in commerce, but proof that you are available for commerce. And if you want to hire my labor services, you have to do it through a proper contract, through the proper diplomatic channels of notice. You can't just go pulling people over alongside the road and say, hey, I need to see your license. Okay? You have to have proof that they're already involved in the contract that implements that statute to pull you over, and that it is valid and operating at the moment. At the moment that you pull them over. It's like a doctor. You can't just say a doctor has a duty to perform outside of the hospital because an accident happened. Most likely they are compelled to. But just because the mechanic's off the job and he goes traveling down the road doesn't mean that when he sees the car sitting alongside the road with the hood up that he has to stop. He's off the clock. So where were we? Because of the absence of a better document, however, the driver's license eventually has become commonly accepted, but does not mean it is, just like it was not intended to be used that way, as the national identity card. Now, I want you to understand, folks, this is coming from the Department of Justice. And that means, again, if they're going to require that driver's license to pull you over for a local municipal traffic, or the county sheriff pulls you over for a traffic code of some sort, or pulls you into their jurisdiction for some kind of sheriff duties things, and he asks for the ID, don't let that fucking county attorney or his assistant or any last one of them say that, well, they don't have anything to do with the federal code. The fuck they don't. Every fucking last one of them does. I don't know how many times I have to show you how this correlates to the national aspect, and that these people think they're going to keep getting away. Well, we don't follow the federal code. The fuck you don't. Section 1028 covers both domestic as well as foreign government-issued driver's licenses. And again, that's an issuance, meaning it's a commercial contract issue for a driver's license for allowing you to do something that otherwise would be unlawful. Personal identification card is defined in 18 U.S.C. 1028 D4 to mean an identification document issued by a state or local government solely for the purpose of identification, not commerce. You see the problem? They're demanding everybody show them a commercial card showing that they can perform commercially, which isn't supposed to be for identification, instead of requiring the identification one that is distinctly for identification and not commerce. solely for the purpose of identification. This definition would appear to limit such documents to those issued by domestic, within the United States, governmental entities, in contrast to the first two, birth certificates and driver's license, one evidencing the trust, one evidencing contracts in that trust. This document is normally issued by State Department of Motor Vehicles to provide an identification document for those persons who do not, for some reason, obtain a driver's license. So reading between the lines, they're still trying to assert the authority that they have to provide something that says you have to have some kind of identification. Even if you're not driving, we still need an ID. No, you don't. I wasn't born with one. That's your creation. You already have it. Oh, maybe you don't have proper access to it and you want me to give it to you so you can. Sorry, ain't gonna happen. In 1979, the National Committee on Uniform Traffic Laws and Ordinances, authors of the Uniform Vehicle Code, provided for the issuance of identification cards for non-drivers and restrictions on the unlawful use of such cards. Really, the National Committee on Uniform Traffic Law and Ordinances, which are publishers, authors, you mean to tell me this is not a communication of Congress? You mean Congress didn't lay and collect taxes, these taxes, duties, imposts, and excises for this particular set of codes? Is that what you're telling me? Because this here says, let me read that very clear and succinct again. It says in 1979, the National Committee on Uniform Traffic Laws and Ordinances, authors of the Uniform Vehicle Code, provided for the issuance of identification cards for non-drivers and restrictions on the unlawful use of such cards. Okay, let me know. I want to know the names of these people here. Because evidently that's where we get our traffic laws, right? That's where we get our National Committee on Uniform Traffic Laws. I want to know who they are. Because it sure as fuck isn't Congress. Congress shall lay and collect taxes, duties, and imposts and excises. Congress shall make rules for the government. Who the fuck are these people that the government is using to pose that they have some kind of authority over us through some kind of outside authorship, outside of Congress, with zero congressional power, authority, legislation, or anything? What did Congress legislate for traffic? Anybody? Anybody? Do you understand all these traffic codes and ordinances were made by publishers, like I said earlier? The municipal takes the statutes, the state statutes, sends them off to a publisher and has them rewritten, and that's where they get their authorities. In the meantime, the county does the same thing. In the meantime, those statutes, those are commercial codes that are already contract terms and conditions under that Constitution, that they have a acquisition regulation for taking property and investing it in the state. It's already there. That's what those statutes are about. But again, those are contract terms and conditions required to implement. You don't just get to go around willy-nilly taking people's property because you have some kind of contract yourself. You have to be able to provide contract terms and conditions, negotiable instruments for that man to accept you taking that property for military use or the United States, not for the state's private gain. The UVC, which serves as the model state code for vehicular matters. You see what we've got? Again, they don't have any laws. It's the Uniform Vehicle Code, written up and authored by the National Committee on Uniform Traffic Laws and Ordinances, that they are using as model state code for vehicular matters. Those state codes have zero congressional power, folks. None. Defines a personal identification card as a document issued by the Department of Motor Vehicles for sole purpose of identifying the bearer, and not authorized for use as a driver's license. License being the definitive term here in a commercial aspect. This is only solely for identifying. Well, let me see that personal identification card, and let me see if that's in concise English, because if it's not, then I believe it would be a personal identification card. Identifying a person, again, not me. See, they have a hard time identifying us. One of the particular problems of identifying us is I can change my motherfucking name any goddamn time I want. My yay be my yay, my nay be my nay, as long as I'm not doing it for nefarious reasons to get away from or out of trouble. I just don't like the fact that you know that name and want to call me that name. I'll change it. Nope, that's not my name. Well, what is it? I don't want to tell you. I don't want you calling me no more. Hang up, click. So let's take a look. Where is it at? Where is it at? Well, first let's take a look at public money. And we have Imperium Private. Sorry if I had you back there for a while. How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing great. No worries.
Do you have any way you can tone down the microphone? It's coming across kind of echo tinny, a tinny echo.
How about now? Is it still up?
A little bit more, maybe.
No.
Too much.
There.
There you go. That's still got it down, but it's better. It's not so loud and vibrant, I guess. Okay, so as I mentioned in the restatement of separation, there are certain documents that they're required to have an integrity in, and that's their job. They're the holder of those records. And that comes down to 18 U.S. Code 641, public money, property, or records. Whoever embezzles, steals, purloins, or knowingly converts to his use or the use of another, with or without authority, sells, conveys, or disposes of any record, voucher, money, or thing of value of the United States or of any department or agency thereof, or any property made or being made under contract for the United States or any department or agency thereof, or whoever receives, conceals, or retains the same with intent to convert it to his use or gain, knowing it have been embezzled, stolen, purloined, or converted. Told you, I'm not going to give you a legal name. I'm going to give you the given name, and I'm going to give you the surname. I'm not going to give you the birth date because I don't know it. I hear I was born on August 20th, though. Now, if you convert that to the first and last name and the birth date, you would be the one converting it. And I'm telling you, that is not true. I'm telling you what is true. I was given a name when I was born. That happens to be Keith. The people I was born under happens to be, well, it's adoptive is Little, but the real birthright is Conrady. And I hear I was born around August 20th, 1966. You're looking for a birth date, which means you're looking for something that was birthed. I wasn't birthed in that sense. So all these conversions through the grammar is what we're talking about. shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. If the value of such property in the aggregate, combining amounts from all the counts from which the defendant is convicted in a single case, does not exceed the sum of $1,000. So that's putting a limitation on the value as $1,000. And speak up anytime, Imperium Privatus. Anytime you have any questions or anything.
Thank you.
And then the next one is gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information. Okay. When they take that information to begin with and turn it into government information, they have to be able to protect and secure that government information. That calls for government defense. So it does become defense information. Because they have to defend it. They have to be able to protect it. It is an internationally protected person under the auspices of being a United States business. They damn well better fucking protect it. But the problem again is they're not and you're not, because you don't know the concept that it's the wrong information. You're not supposed to be giving it to them. Congress shall make rules for the government. Public service is a public trust. So if their contracts and rules are for them, what part in that trust are you? You've been given a business so you can let them use that business to know where the credits come from and go to. But instead, they're digging directly into your pocket. There's a credit system and there's a money system. We're supposed to be able to use both. They cut us off from the money system and never taught us how to use the credit system. Whoever, for the purpose of obtaining information respecting the national defense with intent or reason to believe that the information is to be used to the injury of the United States. And I can tell you, it will injure the United States because it's not true. Ask them. If the integrity of the record is harmed, is it injurious to the United States? Well, yeah, that's our duty. Well, I'm sorry. I apologize. I repent. I won't do it again. But I injured the record. Here. What are they going to do? You have to learn how to admit your errors and show them where they're at. That's all you're doing. I understand that my mama, not being too goddamn bright, forgive her little blessed soul. You know, some people just born, raised dumb, didn't understand to express the living will of the living word of the living God when that miracle happened. Instead, it became a mundane event of labor in a spell of illness. Sick. Goes on to say, or to the advantage of any foreign nation, goes upon, enters, flies over, or otherwise obtains information concerning any vessel, aircraft, work of defense, navy yard, naval station, submarine base, fueling station, fort, battery, torpedo station, dockyard, canal, railroad, arsenal, camp, factory, mine, telegraph, telephone, wireless or signal station, building, office, research laboratory, or station, or other place connected with the national defense owned or constructed, or in progress of construction by the United States, or under control of the United States, or by... How long does this legalese need to go on, folks? Huh? Whoever, for the purpose of aforesaid, for the purpose aforesaid, let's read this again. Whoever, for the purpose of obtaining information respecting the national defense, with intent or reason to believe that that information is to be used to injury of the United States, or to the advantage of any foreign nation. I don't care how you do it. where you do it, why you do it, when you do it. That's all this shit here. For whoever, for the purpose of obtaining information respecting the national defense, with intent or reason to believe that that information is to be used to the injury of the United States or to the advantage of any foreign nation. What is my private information to advantage or injury? If it's not to anybody's advantage and it's not to anybody's injury, then why is it required? Can anybody answer that question? If my private information is not to the injury of another or to the advantage of another, then why is it required? The next one. Gathering or delivering defense information to aid foreign government. And we're not going to read all that. We're going to read the definitive. Let's see here. Okay, this is talking about the evaluation of private property seized and put into a forfeiture fund.
This technically would be a derivative of the Trading with the Enemy Act, wouldn't it?
Right, it's Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978. That's why I talked about espionage. I'm not the motherfucking enemy, and I can prove I'm not the enemy. How are you going to prove that? Well, I don't have any government ID. I was fucking born on this land, and you're the one that has the government ID that says so. You're the one holding that record, not me. You want to learn where it's at? You'll have to ask the right people, and that's not me. That's the Social Security Administration and the Secretary of State, Bureau of Vital Statistics, Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of Treasury. You need to talk to those people. You're talking to the wrong motherfucker.
And Keith, I posted a link for scholarship law, and it's speaking upon the common law name and how it died. And it's almost the same principles of what you're stating. It's saying here 3 steps to eliminate the common law name. Step 1, creating a centralized list of the true names in the United States. Step 2, the Social Security number and forward obligatory identification. And then step 3, the Real ID Act of 2005 and criminalizing pseudonymity.
Well, I'm going to show you.
Protection upon everything.
Well, I'm going to show you the Real ID Act of 2023 or whatever they were talking about. H.S.P.D. 12. This is Homeland Security Presidential Directive 12, Policy for a Common Identification Standard. The Real ID, that's what they're talking about. But most people don't understand. They think, oh, we all got to get this ID, da, da, da. But it's for federal employees and contractors. That's it. That's as simple as it gets, folks. When you read just the titles, you will find out there's a big difference. This is Homeland Security Presidential Directive 12, Policy for a Common Identification Standard for federal employees and contractors. That's the only reason you would need an ID, is to prove that you're not trading with the enemy. That documentation that you have shows that you were born on this land. You can't possibly be the enemy. So that's why I mentioned the espionage laws, because it includes the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, 78. We're talking about the Patriot Act, all of it. All of it. Like I said, it's a military setup.
Exactly. And Keith, that I think I've come to I don't know if the correct term would be assumption and presumption. We shouldn't be getting any credentials except if any one credential would be a passport, since you can fill out the passport without a social security number.
Yeah, you don't even need to fill out the passport. Why would you need a passport? Again, that's an identification document. They're wanting information. Why do you need my information? If my private information isn't to the detriment of the United States, and nobody can make that claim, and it's not to the advantage of a foreign nation, and nobody can make that claim, then what is your claim to demand such identification? See, the reason and logic isn't there. They have to be able to explain, like we saw earlier. One says it's for driver's license to be recognized as a national identification card, national identity card. The other one is solely for the purposes of identification. One's for driver's license, that's commercial. They have distinct uses, and the language tells us. All we have to do is slow down, learn how to read it, and comprehend it. Now, again, I understand there's a lot to read, but I'm using every last bit of it against them. As I'm showing you here, everywhere I go, I'm showing you where they're wrong. Their whole record says they're doing it all wrong. How am I the one that's wrong if they took information from me and I'm trying to tell them it's the wrong information? How am I wrong? I'm telling them it's wrong. You can't have that. Yes, I can. What's your name? So it says disclosure of classified information. Whoever knowingly and willfully communicates, furnishes, transmits, or otherwise makes available to an unauthorized person, or publishes or uses any manner prejudicial to the safety or interest of the United States, or for the benefit of any foreign government to the detriment of the United States, any classified information. I'll be damned if that social security number isn't classified fucking information. I'm not giving it to you. Guess what? Since that social security number pertains to that legal name, that's classified information too. Okay? Now you're looking for the birth date for that classified information too. Guess what? That means that's classified too. Guess what? You want me to call the FBI? I'll call the FBI. I have no problem calling the FBI and say, hey, I got somebody here trying to unlawfully solicit classified information that I've been told by the government not to give, and therefore made a statement of separation that guaranteed I would not give that as it relates to the foreign espionage laws. I don't know if this guy's trying to go out there wantonly just trade with enemies, demanding commercial identifications and stuff so that he can form contracts, but I ain't one of them. I'm an American, and I'm a national on this land. You better learn your place. You're obligated to the people of the land through your commercial endeavors as a matter of public service, which is a public trust. You are the obligated party to we the people, the obligees. Concerning the nature, preparation, or use of any code, cipher, or cryptographic system of the United States or any foreign government, or concerning the design, construction, use, maintenance, or repair of any device, apparatus, or appliance used or prepared or planned for use by the United States or any foreign government for cryptographic or communication intelligence purposes. Concerning the communications intelligence activities of the United States or any foreign government, or obtained by the processes of communication intelligence from the communications of any foreign government, knowing the same to have been obtained by such process, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. As used in this subsection as used in subsection A of this section, the term classified information means information which, at the time of the violation of this section, is, for reasons of national security, specifically designated by a United States government agency for limited or restricted dissemination or distribution. That is, in fact, the Social Security number. The individual's name and number identify the record. And when you use that record, the Social Security card and the birth certificate, to go get either a driver's license or a state ID, they already have that information. And you just used it as if though you were required to use it as an official and started filling out official documentation saying so. That is the injury to the United States. You weren't supposed to do that. You are creating and putting on their ledger a larger debt. You are creating a public debt. You are a creditor to this nation. The terms code, cipher, and cryptographic systems include in their meanings, in addition to their usual meanings, any method of secret writing and any mechanical or electrical device or method used for the purpose of disguising or concealing the content, significance, or meanings of communications. Now, you'll notice on my website, I do have my own little code. It is kind of cryptic, but you also know at the bottom of that page that there's a key to that code so that it is decipherable. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm just trying to be unique and impressive and show other people their talents can be beyond this English language. Understand it for what it is, and it's merely the ability, it's a pathway of being able to express yourself. And it is beautiful if you learn how to use it. Once you recognize its beauty and learn how to use it, now you can start creating your own. And how beautiful is that? When it comes to the negotiable instruments, how beautiful it is that you're able to finally negotiating for your benefit. The term foreign government includes in its meaning any person or persons acting or purporting to act for or on behalf of any faction, party, department, agency, bureau, or military force of or within a foreign country, or for or on behalf of any government. And notice this is lowercase, okay? Or any person or persons purporting to act as a government within a foreign country, whether or not such government is recognized by the United States. So the boogeyman, essentially the boogeyman. You read that? Essentially the boogeyman, whether or not such government is recognized by the United States. It could be the boogeyman, and you can be acting on behalf of the boogeyman, and that would be considered a foreign government. The term communication intelligence means all procedures and methods used in the interpretation or interception of communications and the obtaining of information from such communications by other than intended recipients. Intended recipients. The term unauthorized person means any person who or agency which is not authorized to receive information of the category set forth in subsection A of this section by the president. None of them are required or deemed authorized to accept private information. They're only supposed to be dealing with government information. Let's make that very clear. They're only supposed to be dealing with government information. And when they go around, start demanding your private information, I would tell them to go fuck off, as I have done many times. Nothing in this section shall prohibit the furnishing, upon lawful demand, of information to any regularly constituted committee of the Senate or House of Representatives of the United States of America or joint committee thereof. These are the people we're supposed to be communicating with. Remember, I told you we're supposed to have a communication with Congress. And here we find out that the Uniform Vehicle Code is not a communication with Congress. It's communication with authors of some kind of committee that has no authority to make laws over the people. Because if Congress shall make rules for the government, then they don't make laws over the people, and they have never delegated such powers to anybody else. Any person convicted of a violation of this section shall forfeit to the United States, irrespective of any provision of state law, any property constituting or derived from any proceeds the person obtained directly or indirectly as a result of such violation. Any of the person's property used or intended to be used in any manner or part to which or to commit or to facilitate the commission of such violation. The court, in imposing sentence on a defendant for a conviction of violation of this section, shall order that the defendant forfeit to the United States all property described in paragraph 1, except as provided in paragraph 4, the provisions of subsections B, C, and E through P of section 413 of comprehensive drug review, shall apply to property subject, Okay, yeah. It's their records, and the classified information is yours, and you've been voluntarily giving it up. You're not required to give the government private information. They're only supposed to be dealing with government information. The next, diplomatic codes and correspondence. This goes in correlations to the Title 22 CFR 97.1 and 93.1 and 93.2. I'll look that up, make sure. 22 CFR 93.1. Yeah, service through diplomatic channels. This is 22 CFR 93.1, service through diplomatic channel. And back here we're talking about diplomatic codes and correspondence. That's that notice through diplomatic correspondence, diplomatic channels. Whoever, by virtue of his employment by the United States, obtains from another or has had custody of or access to any official diplomatic code or any matter prepared in any such code or which purports to have been prepared in any such code, and without authorization or competent authority, willfully publishes or furnishes to another any such code or matter, or any matter which was obtained while in the process of transmission between any foreign government and its diplomatic mission in the United States, shall be fined or tied under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. That was a military hospital, folks. And they did, in fact, threaten, duress, and coercion those parents to give them that information so they could willfully publish it in the local newspaper. And what they did was they published a legal name. Okay? That's government information. And they're only supposed to publish that if and when you've organized under the laws of the United States and have been granted a permit to do business under that name. (18 U.S. Code 1905), disclosure of confidential information generally. And this is just a general confidential statistical data. If it's statistical data, how is it confidential? Statistics are public elements. Okay? This is the problem. They think there's confidential statistical data. No, if you're giving them statistical data, you're willing to make it public, and therefore it's public in the meantime, no longer confidential. That's the problem with that vital statistics jurisdiction. It's making things public when they're supposed to remain private. And that's generally, or in prison not more than 1 year. So that's a low fine. But it's still there. 18 U.S. Code 2071, concealment, removal, or mutilation generally. Whoever willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, or destroys or attempts to do so or with intent to do so, takes and carries away any record, proceeding, map, book, paper, document, or other thing filed or deposited with any clerk or officer of any court of the United States or in any public office or with any judicial or public officer of the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. Whoever having custody of any such record, proceeding, map, book, document, paper, or other thing willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, falsifies, or destroys the same shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both, and shall forfeit his office and be disqualified from holding office or any office under the United States, As used in this subsection, the term office does not include the office held by any person as a retired officer of the Armed Forces of the United States. So it means everything but the Armed Forces of the United States. So that means all police officers. Excuse me, 17 U.S. CFR 16.06. And again, this is commodity and securities exchanges. Reports by contract markets and swap execution facilities. You are facilitating by execution a swap in the contract markets, taking on the contractor's obligation to do reports. Errors or omissions, unless otherwise approved by the Commission or its designee, reporting markets shall file corrections to errors or omissions in data previously filed with the Commission pursuant to 16 and 1601 in the format and using the coding structure and electronic data submission procedures approved in writing by the committee or its designee. Shall file correction to errors or omissions in data previously filed with the Commission. Commission means, this term means the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Remember, folks, animal includes man. And that's what they've done, is they've converted your labor to a commodity. And that's why they need your signature on that document. The next one, 18 U.S. Code 542, entry of goods by means of false statements. Whoever enters or introduces or attempts to enter or introduce into the commerce of the United States any imported merchandise by means of any fraudulent or false invoice, declaration, affidavit, letter, paper, or by means of any false statement, written or verbal, or by means of any false or fraudulent practice or appliance, or makes any false statement in any declaration without reasonable cause to believe the truth of such statement, or procures the making of any such false statement as to any matter material thereto without reasonable cause to believe the truth of such statement, whether or not the United States shall or may be deprived of any lawful duties, or whoever is guilty of any willful act or omission whereby the United States shall or may be deprived of any lawful duties accruing under merchandise embraced or referred to in such invoice, declaration, affidavit, letter, paper, or statement, or affected by such act or omission, shall be fined for each offense under this title or prison not more than 2 years or both. Nothing in this section shall be construed to relieve imported merchandise from forfeiture under the other provisions of law. The term commerce of the United States as used in this section shall not include commerce with the Virgin Islands, American Samoa, Wake Island, Midway Islands, Kingman Reef, Johnson Island, or Guam. Next one's one of my favorites, 18 U.S.C. 1512, along with 18 U.S.C. 1589, forced labor. Because Mom was in labor when she became a foreman, and they were tampering with her. 18 U.S. Code 1512, tampering with a witness, victim, or an informant. Whoever kills or attempts to kill another person with intent to prevent the attendance or testimony of any person in an official proceeding, prevent the production of a record, document, or other object in an official proceeding, or prevent the communication by any person to a law enforcement officer or judge of the United States of information relating to the commission or possible commission of a federal offense or violation of conditions of probation, parole, or release pending judicial proceedings, shall be punished as provided in paragraph 3. Whoever uses physical force or threat of physical force against any person or attempts to do so with intent to influence, delay, or prevent the testimony of any person in an official proceeding, cause or induce any person to withhold testimony or withhold a record, document, or other object from an official proceeding, alter, destroy, mutilate, or conceal an object with intent to impair the integrity or availability of the object for use in official proceeding, evade legal process summoning that person to appear as a witness or to produce a record, document, or other object in official proceeding, be absent from an official proceeding to which that person has been summoned by legal process, or hinder, delay, or prevent the communication to a law enforcement officer or judge of the United States of information relating to the commission or possible commission of a federal offense or violation of condition, shall be punished as provided in paragraph 3. In the case of killing, the punishment in section 1111 and 1112. In the case of an attempt to murder, the use or attempt imprisonment of not more than 30 years. In the case of a threat of use of physical force against any person, imprisonment not for more than 30 years. Pull me over alongside that road and try that shit again. Demanding a driver's license, which is not a national identity card and is only for driving commerce, and not have a contract available showing the invoice, showing that you altered records. I'm going to get you. You're incompetent. I already know this. Almost every last one of you. And yeah, I do have big balls to say that. Whoever knowingly uses intimidation, threatens, or corruptly persuades another person or attempts to do so, or engages in misleading conduct toward another person with intent to influence, delay, or prevent the testimony of any person in an official proceeding, cause or induce any person to withhold testimony or withhold a record, document, or other object from an official proceeding, alter, destroy, mutilate, or conceal an object with intent to impair the object's integrity or availability for use in official proceeding, evade legal process, summoning that person to appear as a witness or to produce a record, document, or other object in an official proceeding, be absent from an official proceeding to which that such person has been summoned by legal process. It's all there, folks. Why are you not looking at this stuff? Next one. 10 U.S. Code 1028, fraud and related activity, the performance of functions of public office. In connection with identification documents, authentication features, and information. They're the only ones that require it for the performance of functions of public office. Whoever, in a circumstance described in subsection C, knowingly without lawful authority, produces an identification document, authentication feature, or a false identification document, knowingly transfers an identification document, authentication feature, or false identification document, knowing that such document or feature was stolen or produced without lawful authority. So again, when I tell them I'm not giving you a legal name, which consists of the first and last name, I'm not giving you a birth date. I will give you the given name, which is Keith. I will give you the surname, which is Little. And I hear I was born around August 20th. Now, if you convert that information and create a false identification, guess what? You just did so by stealing the data elements I gave you, converting them, and producing without lawful authority a legal identification. You summoned the legal entity, not me. Knowingly possesses with intent to use unlawfully or... Go ahead.
That also sounds like manufacturing of evidence.
Say that again.
That sounds like manufacturing of evidence against the person.
Yes. Yep. It's manufacturing of evidence. It's converting the data elements you gave them, which are private and they can't record. So in order to put it in the record, he had to convert it. And then when he put it in the record and started issuing this trespass, I'm sorry, you already committed a felony. It's worth 20 years, dude. You're gonna say that this lawful trespass that's gonna keep me trespassed for a 1-year contract, even if it's enforced or enforceable, it's 1 year. You're willing to put up 20 years of your life and lose your job? Let's go.
On top of that, agent practicing law without a license, making legal determinations.
Well, yeah, but that's the least of his worries. That's the least of his worries.
Yeah.
Knowingly possesses an identification document other than one issued lawfully for the use of the possessor. authentication feature or false identification with the intent such document or feature be used to defraud the United States. Did you know that when they use that, they're creating a debt against the United States that would otherwise not have been created? That sounds like fraudulent to me. And I think the United States does lose out on that. Knowingly produces, transfers, or possesses a document making implement or authentication feature with the intent knowingly possesses an identification document or authentication feature that is or appears to be an identification document or authenticating feature of the United States or a sponsoring entity of an event designated as a special event of national significance, which is stolen or produced without lawful authority, knowing that such document or feature was stolen or produced without such authority. You know, I had a friend that had a silver coin in his pocket one day when they pulled him over, out traveling around without plates or driver's license. He got a silver coin in his pocket, though. And you know that sheriff took that silver coin out of his pocket when he searched him and left it on the car seat. That's theft. That's theft of something of a national item. Knowingly transfers, possesses, or uses without lawful authority a means of identification of another person with the intent to commit or to aid or abet or in connection with any unlawful activity that constitutes a violation of federal law or that constitutes a felony under applicable state or local law. So when I give you that name as a given name and the surname as a surname and the day I was born on, I give them to you as those data elements are, private. And if you turn around and convert them and put them into a public record and then try to drag me into that public forum, I guarantee you, you're facing 20 years. I'm just going to make mention of it and let them see how I come to that reason. And I'm sure they'll see that reason as well. And they'd much rather, I think, if they're as greedy as I think they are, they'd much rather go after the guy that's got 20 years worth of estate to steal from than the guy that knows about it and is compelling them that 1 year really ain't worth their gambling chips. Because my chips are real chips. You know what I mean?
Keith, let me interject. Would that also be considered aggravated identity theft?
Absolutely. That's the next one. Hang on. Knowingly traffics in false or actual authentication features for use in false identification documents shall be punished. The punishment for an offense under subsection A of this section is, except as provided in paragraph 3 and 4, fine under this title or imprisonment not more than 15 years or both. So again, another hefty one, 15 years. So we got a bunch of them with some hefty years, folks. A fine under this title or imprisonment for not more than 30 years or both if the offense is committed to facilitate an act of domestic terrorism. You get in my fucking face and threaten, try to intimidate me again? That is domestic terrorism, you ignorant motherfuckers. Use your goddamn license and position in a policy enforcement place, knowing you're not even peace officers, and you're going to intimidate and threaten me?
Hey, Keith, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
I know one position there's a position within the police. They wear both hats, right? One's a peace officer, and then another one is.
No, they're not peace officers.
Not the lieutenant that has a white shirt.
I don't give a fuck who they are. It goes to the premise of a good cop.
Okay.
If you're going to be a peace officer, then you're going to be the good cop that's telling on those ones that aren't. I don't see it happening. Let's see what means of identification means. 18 U.S.C. 1028 D7. The means of identification means any name or number that may be used alone or in conjunction with any other information to identify a specific individual, including any name, social security number, date of birth, official statement, or official state or government issued driver's license or identification number, alien registration number, government passport number, employer or taxpayer identification number, unique biometric data such as fingerprint, voice print, retina, or iris image, and other unique physical representation. Unique electronic identification number, address, or routing code, or telecommunication identifying information or access device. So these are the various different means of identification. Which one do you want to be associated with? Such as fingerprint. Okay, that's still in a media. Voice print, it's still in a media. Retina or iris image, it's still in a media. Data, it's still in a media. I just want to be left alone and be identified as a living creature, a living soul. Can you do that? Can you recognize me for the glorious creature that we all are? Or do you have to continuously put everybody down because you don't know how to think highly of yourself? Meaning that you don't have much esteem for yourself because that's your go-to is call people names and threaten and bully them? Or is that just because you seem to think you have a power and authority position? So now you get to do that and have fun. It's fucking sickening.
Those, like you always say, those are artistic elements created in his image and likeness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's my artistic element. I mean, isn't that protected under the Treaty of Berne, artistic elements? Yeah, yeah. So, 1028A, aggravated identity theft. Offenses, whoever during and in relation to any felony violation enumerated in subsection C knowingly transfers, possesses, or uses without lawful authority a means of identification of another person shall, in addition to punishment provided for such felony, be sentenced to a term of imprisonment of 2 years. So it comes with an automatic, it says, in addition to the punishment provided for such felony, be sentenced to a term of imprisonment of 2 years. So they're not getting off with anything less than 2 years. Terrorism offense, 5 years. Consecutive sentence, notwithstanding any other provision of law, a court shall not place on probation any person convicted of a violation of this section, except as provided in paragraph 4. No term of imprisonment imposed on a person under this section shall run concurrently with any other term of imprisonment. In other words, you can't boxcar them or run them concurrent. You have to boxcar them. You have to wait till you're done with the other sentence, and then this sentence kicks in. Okay? With any other term of imprisonment imposed on the person under any other provision of law, including any term of imprisonment imposed for the felony during which the means of identification was transferred, possessed, or used. In determining any term of imprisonment to be imposed for the felony during which the means of identification was transferred, possessed, or used, a court shall not in any way reduce the term to be imposed for such crime so as to compensate for or otherwise take into account any separate term of imprisonment imposed or to be imposed for violation of this section. A term of, in other words, if they know that he's got a mandatory here, they can't give him a lighter sentence so he can serve it earlier. Ain't favoritism. Ain't no favoritism. A term of imprisonment imposed on a person for a violation of this section may, in the discretion of court, run concurrently in whole or in part only with another term of imprisonment that is imposed by the court at the same time on that person for additional violation of this section, provided that such discretion shall be exercised in accordance with any applicable guidelines and policy statements issued by the Sentencing Commission pursuant to Section 994 of Title 28. Okay, so the next one I've got is Title 42 U.S. Code 1983. That's that civil action for deprivation of rights. All that stuff we just watched or just went through and talked about, that is opening the door wide when these public officials don't know their responsibility and their duty and their obligation of making sure that that record is true and correct and the integrity upholds so that it doesn't harm and injure neither the United States or the principal real party in interest. Then they're walking in deep waters and they don't know how to swim. They're gonna drown. And I'll be glad to step right on their head and push them under. You want to keep boasting that I'm just doing your job? I'll remind you once again, you're nothing more than fucking Hitler's willing executioner, you slave bitch ass motherfuckers. You want to keep acting that way? That's what you're going to get with me. You want to start understanding that you're an adult and it's time to start learning and take upon that learning that you're required to do in that job because society does change day to day, requiring you to learn as it changes? Then I'll be glad to have a conversation with you. Until then, I think you're a bitch ass slave that doesn't want to communicate with me because you're afraid of the real truth. You won't take on responsibility of correcting a goddamn record? Come on. Too fucking lazy. So the next one, 42 U.S. Code 2272, violation of specific sections. Whoever willfully violates, attempts to violate, or conspires to violate any provisions of Section 2077 or 2031 of this title, Social Security, human health and welfare, and all that, or whoever unlawfully interferes, attempts to interfere, or conspires to interfere with any recapture or entry under Section 28 or 2138 of this title, shall, upon conviction thereof, be punished by a fine of not more than $10,000 or by imprisonment for not more than 10 years or both. Except that whoever commits such an offense with intent to injure the United States or with intent to secure an advantage to a foreign nation shall, upon conviction, be punished by imprisonment for life or by imprisonment for any term of years or a fine of not more than $20,000 or both. Any person who violates or attempts to conspires to violate Section 2122 of this title shall be fined not more than $2 million and sentenced to a term of imprisonment not less than 25 years or to imprisonment for life. Any person who, in the course of violation of Section 2122 of this title, uses, attempts, or conspires to use or possess and threatens to use any atomic weapon shall be fined not more than $2 million and imprisoned for not less than 30 years or imprisoned for life. If the death of another results from a person's violation of Section 2122 of this title, the person shall be fined not more than $2 million in punishment or punished by imprisonment for life. Or conspires to interfere with any recapture or entry under Section 2138 of this title. What is that? Suspension of license during war or national emergency. Whenever the Congress declares that a state of war or national emergency exists, the Commission is authorized to suspend any license that's granted under this chapter. So what are they doing when they're suspending the license? They pull you over and they suspend your license. Sounds like an act of war against one of the people by requiring a license, which they're not even required to have. So if you don't have that license, you only have an ID, and you're still traveling down the road, they're still going to arrest you. The next one, generally, violations of sections. This is 42 U.S. Code 2273. Whoever willfully violates, attempts to violate, or conspires to violate any provisions of this chapter for which no criminal penalty is specifically provided or of any regulation or order prescribed or issued under Section 2095 or 2201 I or O of this title, shall, upon conviction thereof, be punished by a fine of not more than $5,000 or by imprisonment not more than 2 years, or both. Then basically they again just step it up the same way they did the last one for certain things. The next one, communication of restricted data from 42 U.S. Code 2274. Whoever lawfully or unlawfully having possession of access to, control over, or being entrusted with any document, writing, sketch, photograph, plan, model, instrument, appliance, note, or information involving or incorporating restricted data, communicates, transmits, or discloses the same to any individual or person, or attempts to or conspires to do any of the foregoing with intent to injure the United States or with intent to secure an advantage to any foreign nation, upon conviction thereof, shall be punished by imprisonment for life, or by imprisonment for any term of years, or a fine of not more than $100,000, or both. Then, of course, they just pump it up the next time. Communicates, transmits, or discloses the same to any individual or person, or attempts to or conspires to do any of the foregoing with reason to believe such data will be utilized to injure the United States or to secure an advantage to any foreign nation, shall, upon conviction, be punished by a fine of not more than $50,000 or imprisonment not more than 10 years, or both. So they do have a lot of, oops, and I forgot to change that one over. Communication of restricted data. The next one we have is 2275, receipt of restricted data. Same thing. Or by imprisonment of any term of years, or fine not more than $100,000, or both. Be punished by imprisonment for life, or $100,000, or any term of years, or both. Tampering with restricted data. Shall be punished by imprisonment for life, or by imprisonment for any term of years, or a fine of not more than $20,000, or both. All these carry heavy fines, folks. Heavy fines and heavy penalties when it comes to that prison term. The next one is 2277, disclosure of restricted data. Again, upon conviction thereof, be punishable by a fine of not more than $12,500. So anybody in receipt doesn't get a prison sentence, but they do get a fine. But again, it's all dependent upon whether they're knowing or not. This is the importance of giving them legal notice. 50 U.S. Code 783 offenses. And we're going to go down to subsection, I think it's, B and D. Receipt of or attempt to receive by foreign agent or member of communist organization classified information. Penalties for violation. Limitation period. Any person may be prosecuted, tried, and punished for any violation of this section at any time within 10 years after the commission of such offense. I'm on year 8. They've got 2 years to help me figure this out, and do so with assistance and agreement and amnesty. Otherwise, they can face some hefty penalties by their own agencies, not by me. The next one is 48 CFR 2508.1, definitions under public welfare. Corporation for National and Community Service. Implementation of the Privacy Act of 1974. Did you know you were being raised as a performing community service all throughout for the national level? Amend means to make a correction to or expunge any portion of a record about an individual which that individual believes is not accurate. Amend means to make a correction to or expunge any portion of. Like I said, I'm going to get that record expunged as far as I'm concerned. And that may seem like a lofty goal, but that's what I'm going to attempt, and I don't think anybody's going to be able to get in the way to stop me of that, because until it's done, I'm going to keep learning and keep learning and keep learning why that information is wrong and why it needs to be removed. And how to do so, of course. Automatic and manual, or manual and automatic declassification form, Department of Defense Form 715. It was a Department of Defense issue, enumeration at birth, so I imagine they can declassify it. Appeal officer means the individual delegated the responsibility to act on all appeals filed under the Privacy Act. Chief executive officer means the head of the corporation. Corporation means Corporation for National Community Service. Individual means any citizen of the United States or an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence being deemed necessary. Maintain means to collect, use, store, disseminate, or any combination of these record-keeping functions, exercise of control over, and therefore responsibility and accountability for systems of records. Personnel records means any information about an individual that is maintained in a system of records by the corporation that is needed for personnel management or processes such as staffing, employment, development, retirement, grievances, and appeals. Corporation means Corporation for National Community Service. Privacy Act officer means the individual delegated the authority to allow access to, the release of, or the withholding of records pursuant to an official Privacy Act request. The communication with Congress. We got to keep these data elements private. I agreed to keep the Social Security number private. You have to agree to keep my name private. I think that's equal consideration. Privacy Act officer is further delegated the authority to make the initial determination on requests or on all requests to amend records. Record means any document or other information about an individual maintained by the agency, whether collected or grouped, and including but not limited to information regarding education, financial transactions, medical history, criminal or employment history, or any other personal information that contains the name or other personal identification number, symbol, etc. assigned to such individual, including everything you do in life. That bank account, that's not private. That's public. That's a public record. Routine use means with respect to the disclosure of a record, the use of such record for a purpose which is compatible with the purpose for which it was collected. And if it was collected for private purposes, then it would have been collected by a private organization and not a public government. System of records mean a group of any records under the maintenance and control of the corporation from which information is retrieved by use of the name of an individual or by some personal identifier of the individual. What do you think?
I think you're on point, Keith. Like always.
Yeah, I don't think they've got much room to squeak through. I think I've covered quite a bit, and I think I've got almost all of it covered. I know exactly what they're doing when they ask me to get involved in a consensual communication with them. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to direct the communication. I'm going to let them know every fucking word that comes out of their mouth, whether they know how to use it or not, and how I interpret whether they're using it correct or not. I'll even do some good questions like, are you a United States citizen? Uh-huh, uh-huh. Oh, so you're a real man, huh? Uh-huh, uh-huh. You're a Christian? Uh-huh, uh-huh. Did you know that Genesis 2:7 says God formed man of the dust of the ground, and when he breathed the breath of life into his nostrils, man became a living soul. So you just admitted that you're not a living soul. Did you know that a United States citizen means a United States business, and quid pro quo, equally and aversely, synonymously, a United States business means a United States citizen. And you just said you're a United States citizen. Do you know that you're a United States business? Yeah, see, and they don't want to deal with that. It's too complicated for them. So rather than that, they go back and fall back on their tactical training and get physical because that's what dumb people do. To defeat one's opponent without fighting is of supreme excellence. And a true king doesn't want to lose the life of any of his warriors, so he would prefer not to send them out to war, let alone on foot to war independently, individually, with whoever he chooses. And with that, we've come to the end of the stream here tonight. Like I said, you can check that out on my El Perro page, community section here, and it's down there. It's where I placed the APU Constitution, and as far as the preamble was and how it relates to the scriptures. Each one, I took the section of the preamble, put it down there, and then I put the scripture that correlates with it, and I hope you can see those correlations. Then there's a thing down here. He bought a building with a credit card. You should check that one out. It's pretty amazing, and it's what I'm talking about. The way this system works, if you figure it out, you're going to start astounding people, and that's what I'd love to do. I'd love to show this community that not only while they thought I was one of the poorest people, that I'm in fact one of the richest people, simply because I know how the credit system works, and now I'm willing to sit there and write $250,000 checks out, or $2.5 million check, whatever they need. It's coming from me and my estate, and I know there's a lot in there. I'm just going to extend the credits, and its customer agrees to make third-party payment so long as it's understood that credit is given to the customer's account. So whatever I pay for comes right back through a means of credit. So if I pay with a means of credit, it comes back in credit. So it zeroes itself out. It's amazing how the system is said to work, and it's amazing how none of these people know how to let it work that way, and instead they want to pose these false debts. You got anything on the way out the door, brother?
No, that was just a great quote from The Art of War, right? Sun Tzu at the end.
Absolutely. Why would you send your men out to fight if there's no reason to fight? And having said that, why would you send them out looking for fights? If you truly honor all of their lives, then recognize that there's no fight, and that if there's a controversy, there's a solution. You don't have to fight. To defeat one's opponent without fighting is of supreme excellence. Every military commander around the world agrees on this. Anyhow, with that, we are out, and you guys know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you, and have a good night. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll see you then.